today, including releasing Tyreek Hill, veteran wide receiver who missed most of last season with a significant knee injury. Tyreek Hill was due around $36 million in salary and bonuses this season. So this was always a likely outcome. $16 million of that would have become guaranteed if he was still on the roster on March 14th. So the Dolphins getting ahead of that, also releasing defensive end Bradley Chubb, among other players today. They'll take some dead money, about $28 million for Tyreek Hill, but they're obviously moving on. New GM, new head coach, a new era there in Miami.
A whole lot going on with the Dolphins on this Monday after being traded to Miami in March of 2022. Tyreek Hill posted all-pro seasons in his first 2 years in Miami. Hill then saw a pretty massive drop-off in production in 2024, ranking outside the top 20 in both receptions and yards. Last season, Hill suffered a dislocated knee and torn ACL in Week 4 against the Jets. Welcome in to NFL Live. I'm Courtney Cronin. We've got a full house on this Monday. Brooke Pryor, Mina Kimes, Sam Acho, and Dan Graziano. So we know the Dolphins have been very active today. A lot of spring cleaning, I think is what we call that, down in Miami. They cut ties with linebacker Bradley Chubb, offensive lineman James Daniels, wide receivers Nick Westbrook-Ikine, and of course, Tyreek Hill. So Acho, let's focus on the big name here. Your reaction was what to the news of Hill being released?
It just reminds me that the NFL is actually a business, and it's about your production. What have you done for me lately? Well, lately, last year, Tyreek Hill was injured for majority of the season. He's going to be rehabbing and recovering in this offseason. The year before had one of his worst seasons, at least from a statistical standpoint. And so as much as you get excited about, man, this is my team or my year or have this contract, when a new owner comes in, or in this case specifically, a new general manager or a new head coach, it goes back to the business side of it. Now, the question is, with Tyreek Hill and his health and his age, will he get back to the production where he was arguably the best receiver in all of football? Jury's still out on that, but it just shows me that it is a business in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it. There's a lot of questions around Hill right now. 32 years old, or going to be 32 next season, coming off of the ACL. Game is really predicated on elite speed, so there's questions about whether or not he'll be able to hit that speed moving forward as he ages, obviously. Brings some baggage off the field as well. It's not the right player for every team. I think for teams that are in the market, though, for a deep threat receiver who don't want to compete for Alec Pierce, who's a guy I'm going to talk about later, he does make sense. And the other thing I'll note is the injury did, of course, happen at the very beginning of the season. So that's a benefit to him and his acquiring team as well. And as Sam put, he's not that far removed from being very productive. So even if he is 70% of the player he was a couple of years ago, he still brings, I think, some value to certain teams in the NFL.
And teams will want to look at him as a potential free agent. Mina, you mentioned the timeline of when he will be ready to play potentially in the 2026 season. So, Brooke, let's talk landing spots now for Tyreek Hill. Where makes the most sense?
I mean, look, the Kansas City Chiefs are already getting the band back together, bringing back offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. So why not also explore bringing back wide receiver Tyreek Hill, who helped them win a Super Bowl? The Chiefs, yes, have won a Super Bowl since they traded Tyreek Hill in 2022, but they have not found that consistency on offense without him. Now, part of the reason that they decided to trade him in 2022 is because they saw what could come down the pipeline as far as an extension that could get contentious. All of these things, they felt like they could get a good value from him, trading him away. But look, I think that Tyreek Hill coming back would be a lot different than the Tyreek Hill that left. I think that he's in a different spot leverage-wise. I also think that if he comes back, he has to be okay with being part of the ensemble and not being the lead singer. That's what he wanted before in Kansas City. So if he can accept that role, he makes all the sense in the world. He has chemistry with Patrick Mahomes. He knows Eric Bieniemy's system. He knows Andy Reid's system. He's familiar to everyone there. And if not there, keep an eye on another AFC West team, the Chargers, or perhaps I could be covering him in Pittsburgh. They badly need a wide receiver too. That's an option.
Okay, so Miami hard at work clearing up cap space. Graz, you mentioned the $16 million on Tyreek Hill's contract would become guaranteed on the third day of the league year. Bradley Chubb was also released. He had a cap hit of about $31 million for 2026. So that brings the question now to Tua Tagovailoa. Is it possible that we could be hearing some decision on the quarterback down in Miami, Graz?
It's possible, Courtney, but it's not as urgent for them to do it soon because Tua Tagovailoa's $54 million salary for this coming year is already fully guaranteed. So if they cut him, they'll have to pay that regardless. There's not a date at which it activates like there was with Tyreek Hill. A third day of the league year, another $3 million for 2027 becomes guaranteed, but that's not likely to deter them when they're already at 54. The Dolphins would like to be able to trade Tua Tagovailoa and get someone to help them defray the cost. Trading him, they'd incur $45 million in dead money instead of the $99 million it would cost them in dead money to release him. So they'll continue to explore those options. They may have to pick up a chunk of the salary to make a trade work. Unclear whether they'll be willing to do that and to what extent. So this could drag a little while as the Dolphins still retain at least some hope that they might be able to get something in return for Tua Tagovailoa rather than just cutting him loose.
New coaching staff, new front office, new philosophies all down in Miami. And just to put a bow on this, Mina, you mentioned Tyreek Hill's age, 32 on March 1st. It's worth noting there's only one instance of a player 32 years or older gaining 1,500 receiving yards in a season. None other than Jerry Rice in 1995. We'll see if Tyreek Hill is able to do that in 2026. All right, to Seattle, where the Seahawks have named Brian Fleury their new offensive coordinator. Former 49ers tight ends coach and run game coordinator brings a system built on a stout run game and versatility, kind of like his career path in the NFL. Fleury began as a linebackers coach, director of football research, quality control coach, and an assistant position coach at that. So under Clint Kubiak in 2025, former OC in Seattle, the Seahawks had the highest designed rush percentage in the league while ranking third in points per game. Seahawks will have a big decision to make coming up in March. Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker III is set to become a free agent next month. So, Graz, what can you tell us about Seattle's decision to go outside the organization for this hire?
Yeah, Seahawks head coach Mike Macdonald talked early in the process about continuity. Once Clint Kubiak left, he wanted to keep continuity, and they interviewed 4 internal candidates from their offensive staff. So it was a little bit of a surprise to see them go outside the organization. I asked some people there why that happened, and the answers I got were about Mike Macdonald and his process. He wanted to do a real search and really not weight the internal candidates more heavily than external ones. They really were impressed, obviously, with Brian Fleury. They feel like they hired the right man for the job. And it also doesn't hurt that there is system continuity because Clint Kubiak runs a similar system to what Kyle Shanahan's running in San Francisco. Fleury was in San Francisco in 2023 when Sam Darnold was there. So there's a lot of continuity even though he is coming from outside the organization.
Okay, so with that said, the Seahawks are replacing one offensive coordinator who coached under Kyle Shanahan with another. Mina, when you take a look at the system and the scheme and what you expect to translate from one place to another, how does Brian Fleury and what does Brian Fleury bring to Seattle?
Well, as Dan highlighted, there is going to be a lot of continuity, right? The Kubiak offense, under center, condensed formations, outside zone, play actioning off of that. I think we're going to see a lot of that still, in part because it suits the quarterback and some of the skill players in the offensive line so well. But one of the things that intrigues me about Brian Fleury in this hire is in San Francisco, he really had his hands on the run game, not just last year, but over the last few years from what I've heard. And that run game in San Francisco has actually evolved a lot over the course of the last few years. We think of it as being that, under center, outside zone centric run scheme, but a few years ago they pivoted to more of a gap style, and then they went back to running more outside zone. And I think that ability to evolve, those tweaks are going to be really important for Brian Fleury, just as they were important for Clint Kubiak over the course of this season. We saw him make such fantastic in-season, in-game adjustments. That's always the great unknown with a first-time offensive coordinator. Can he do that? But I like the fact that coming from San Francisco, he showed the ability, or he was part of an offense that did evolve during his time here, because he's going to have to do the same in Seattle at some point.
And I don't want to underestimate the fact that Brian Fleury was a tight ends coach. And Mina, you know this very well. Outside zone or stretch zone, the C-gap is the most important part of that play. And so think about it. The tight end really tries to control the C-gap. I know because I played against it year in and year out when I was playing San Francisco, and they were running that outside zone and stretch. And so the fact that Brian Fleury understands not just the tight end position, but also what it's like for the offensive lineman next to him, the left tackle, the right tackle, the run game, also the passing game. Even if you listen to him talk, he talks about about the importance of detail and sticking to the same language. He's talking about how Kyle Shanahan had a huge emphasis on details and fundamentals. That's one thing that excites me about this hire, the fact that he understands the most critical position in that stretch and outside zone scheme.
A lot of moving parts here in the NFC West to the AFC West. So with one Seahawks addition comes a subtraction on the offensive staff. Clint Kubiak just scooped up one of his own, hiring Andrew Janocko as his OC out in Las Vegas. Graz, fill us in on the newest addition to the Raiders coaching staff.
Yeah, Andrew Janocko is really Clint Kubiak's guy. They coached together in Minnesota from 2019 to 21. Janocko was with Kubiak in 2024 when Kubiak was the offensive coordinator of the Saints, and of course, obviously this year in Seattle.